Hey guys, I'm here with another basketball video. This is a video about the recent rankings that ESPN came out with. So ESPN recently made top 100 NBA players of all time ranking, and I think they ranked it based on some advanced metrics, like NBA win shares and stuff like that. And I'm gonna go through this list one by one and tell you guys what I think about it, if I disagree or agree with the ranking. And if I agree, I would usually, not say much about it. If I disagree, then I always say whether the player is overrated or underrated according to my opinion. So let's begin. All right, so we have the all-time NBA rank 91 to 100 to begin with, and let's see, number 91. This is going, I guess, backwards. 91, Maurice Cheeks. Maurice Cheeks, actually I think he's pretty underrated, so I'm a little bit surprised to see him at number 91, but there he is, and I don't really have a problem with that. I think it's fine. Great defensive player, part of that 83 championship team for the 76ers. And then number 92, Nate Thurmond. Now this one I kind of have a problem with because I think in general ESPN kind of ranks lower players. They're underrating lower players and overrating modern players because they have this generation or era bias that a lot of fans do. A lot of fans give older players a lot of disrespect because they played in an older era with so-called less competition, so they disregard a lot of the accomplishments that older players did, and Nate Thurmond is one of them. I mean, Nate Thurmond is one of the best defensive centers of all time, and one of the best rebounders of all time too, like 15 rebounds per game, right? And the 2 blocks per game, which is only tracked for the last few years of his career. So I think Nate Thurmond is not the 92nd player of all time. He definitely deserves to be higher ranked than that, so he's very underrated here. So I disagree with this ranking. I mean, if you look back, the NBA had a top 50 greatest players celebration back in '97, and Nate Thurmond was on that. So how can a top 50 greatest player in that celebration fall all the way down to 92? It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, no idea why he's that low. Lenny Wilkens, again, here's another player who was part of the 50 greatest players celebration, although I think Nate Thurmond is better than Lenny Wilkens, but still, I mean, all the way down to 93, right? That's crazy. Like, Lenny Wilkens at least deserves to be a little bit higher than that. 16.5, 4.7, 6.7 assists. Yeah, pretty underrated here. Mike Price, the number 94. Don't really have an opinion on this. I do think he's one of the better Cleveland Cavaliers. Apparently better than Brad Daugherty because he's not on here. So I guess it's fine, Mike Price. And then Marc Gasol. This is where they have a lot of modern players on here. I'm not sure Marc Gasol, I mean, he's a good defensive player. He's a good center. And slightly better than Paul Gasol at this point. So I'm not going to disagree too much with this one. Bobby Jones, number 96. Again, great defensive player. And yeah, 11-time all-defensive selection. The problem is that they don't have Michael Cooper on this list, even though Michael Cooper actually won Defensive Player of the Year, playing the same spot that Bobby Jones did, which is the forward position. So it's a little bit weird why they don't have Michael Cooper, but they have Bobby Jones. And they have James Harden, 97. I'm fine with that too. I think James Harden is a pretty good baller, and yeah, in today's NBA, he's one of the top players of all time. Having 97th all time, I think is fine. So not too much about that. Gail Goodrick, 98. Yeah, I think James Harden is better than Gail Goodrick, so I have no problems with that either. I mean, Gail Goodrick was a good player, but yeah, James Harden's a little bit better, so 98 is fine. 99, Kevin Love. So this is where people had like a little bit of a problem. Kevin Love really only had one good season, right? Which is 2011. When he got like 15 rebounds a game. And even though he's a really good rebounder, I'm not sure if he's a top 100 player yet. I think it's a little bit early to put him in the top 100 player, especially when he didn't do that well in the Cleveland Cavs yet. He was playing really good for the Timberwolves, but for the Cleveland Cavs, yeah, not really that much. So I think he's a bit overrated here. He's not top 100 yet, in my opinion. And Sean Kemp, which is number 100, and yeah, along with a lot of people, I agree that Sean Kemp is better than Kevin Love at this moment. I think Sean Kemp deserves to be ranked higher than Love. So yeah, I have no idea why they rank Love higher. So that is number 91 to 100. Now let's move on to 81 to 90. Okay, let's go. Sidney Moncrief at number 81. Really underrated player, actually, not even the Hall of Fame, and one of the greatest defensive guards ever. And I think I'm glad that he got the recognition here. Sidney Moncrief, great player, great two-way player, really made the Bucks competitive during the 80s. So I'm fine with that. Two-time Defensive Player of the Year, by the way. David Thompson at number 82. I'm a little bit scratching my head why they have David Thompson at 82, and they have people like Nate Thurmond and Lenny Wilkens like 92 and 93. I don't get it. I mean, who would actually say that David Thompson was a better player than Nate Thurmond, right? It doesn't make any sense for me. Yeah, this guy, four-time All-Star, which is like the years he played in Denver were good, but you know, he scored 73 points a game before. But I wouldn't put him this early, 82, just because his career kind of like he didn't have a good prime, right? He got addicted to crack, and then his career started falling down. So I wouldn't put him this high, 82. And Chris Mullin, 83. Again, he is above all these Hall of Famers that they put below them, so I don't agree with that. The actual spot I don't really have a problem with, but it's just the fact that they put all these Hall of Famers below them. Dennis Johnson, 84. I'm fine with this. I think Dennis Johnson is a really underrated player. You know, led the Supersonics to a title. Great defensive player. A little bit underrated actually, but I'm fine with the spot, number 84. Okay, number 85, Dave DeBusschere, another great defensive player. Another guy who was part of the NBA's 50 greatest celebration, by the way. Dave DeBusschere. He was, yeah, six-time all defensive first team, so great defensive player. Really good rebounder as well. A little bit underrated, but I'm okay with him at this spot. I just think that he was, you know, maybe slightly better than this. Okay, Chris Bosh at number 86. I kind of have a problem with this. Chris Bosh, really? Like, you'll see a lot of Hall of Famers be ranked lower than these guys, right? A lot of NBA's 50 greatest be ranked lower than these guys. I don't think Chris Bosh is better than some of the other players we'll see later on this list. I'll come back to this. Number 87, Chauncey Billups. I think Ben Wallace should probably be in the spot because I think Ben Wallace had more of an impact on those mid-2000s Pistons teams, which won the title. I mean, those Pistons teams were really great defensive teams, and Ben Wallace really was the anchor of that team, not Chauncey Billups. So I would actually swap Chauncey Billups with Ben Wallace here. So I don't agree that Chauncey Billups should be here. I think it should be Wallace instead. Okay, here's where I had the problem. Number 88, Billy Cunningham. Okay, this is a guy actually I had as an honorable mention in my list because I think he was like a 60s player, top 60s player, right? Like, the fact that they put him 88 all time, like, and Nate Thurmond 92, like, both of those players I think deserve to be much higher. I think he's underrated. I mean, 21 points per game, 10 rebounds a game, 4 assists a game, and they put him below Chris Bosh. They put him below David Thompson. Like, I don't know anyone in their right mind would take Chris Bosh over Billy Cunningham. I mean, this guy was an MVP in the ABA, right? They even have that here, ABA MVP. So, like, why is he below Chris Bosh? It doesn't make any sense. Like, this guy should be ranked way higher. So I think that's why these old players, they get really disrespected here. Number 89, Yao Ming. I don't agree with this one really that much either, because Nate Thurmond is better than Yao Ming. I mean, who is going to take Yao Ming over Nate Thurmond? A guy who averaged 15 and 15, right? This guy, 19, 9.2, right? Which is fine stats, but still, he's not the defensive player that Nate Thurmond was. And yeah, I don't think Yao Ming's better than Nate Thurmond. And yeah, number 90, Paul Arizin, another guy who's part of the NBA's 50 greatest, along with Billy Cunningham, Nate Thurmond, Lenny Wilkens, Dave DeBusschere. You'll see all these NBA 50 greatest guys, part of that celebration, fall all the way down to the 80s and 90s, which is just bizarre. Paul Arizin actually had in the top 50 of all time, so he really got disrespected here. Putting all the way down to 90. This guy led Philadelphia Warriors to a title back in 1955, right? Or 1956 actually. So yeah, the fact that he led them to a title, should have won Finals MVP if they had him back then. Yeah, it's just, I don't know why. This guy's clearly one of the best players of the 1950s, and they have him all the way down to number 90. That's crazy. He was easily him and Neil Johnston, which is another underrated player, by the way. Neil Johnston's not even on this list, which is nuts. Yeah, they were the leader of the Philly Warriors, which really get disrespected. So yep, that's my opinions on that. A lot of great players that were underrated. a lot of modern players that were overrated. Alright, 71 to 80. Pete Maravich at 71. I think Pete Maravich should be a little bit lower, just because he was a great player. I'm not saying he's not talented, he was a great player. The fact is, though, that he never made it really very far in the playoffs. And the fact that, well, his prime was very short, right, because he got injured. I mean, he has great career stats, 24, 4, and 5. But yeah, the fact that he got injured, had a very short prime, never went to the finals or anything, I wouldn't put him 71. I mean, you have a lot of Hall of Famers below this guy, right? So I wouldn't put him this high. And number 72, Adrian Dantley. Again, I would put Dantley over Pete Maravich for sure, because Dantley had a much better career. This guy actually led the league in scoring twice, I think. 2-time NBA scoring champion. And I know Pete Maravich was named to the NBA's 50 greatest players, and Adrian Dantley was not. But I think Adrian Dantley should have been, honorable mention or something. He should have been on the next 10 or next 20 if they add to the NBA's 50 greatest. I definitely think he's better than Pete Maravich. So yeah. 73, Dikembe Mutombo. I'm okay with this. All-time great rebounder, all-time great defender. Basically the modern day Wes Unseld, not Wes Unseld, so very, very similar to Dennis Rodman, very similar to Ben Wallace in a way. Yeah, I guess you can say, yeah, he does all the dirty work, and I think second all-time in block shots, so I'm fine with that. Number 74, Dolph Schayes. This is another one that got disrespected. I mean, Dolph Schayes was NBA's 50 greatest players, right? And one of the best players of the 50s, led the Syracuse Nationals to a championship in 1955, averaged 18.5, 12 rebounds a game, 3 assists a game, and definitely one of the greatest players of the 50s. How does he get disrespected all the way down to 74? I mean, he was part of the NBA's 50 greatest, also part of my top 50. And if you add up his rings, he should have had a Finals MVP, and his stats, he's definitely higher than this 74. I think he's top 50 actually. So that's what I mean, that you're kind of disrespecting old players here. I mean, the fact that they're gonna have George Mikan, by the way, they're gonna have George Mikan in the top 50, and Dolph Schayes falls all the way down to 74. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. All right, number 75. Just below Dolph Schayes is Blake Griffin, which is, I think Blake Griffin should be ranked way lower than Dolph Schayes. But anyways, I guess he's a really good player here. I mean, the ranking itself I don't have a problem with. It's just the problem that ESPN puts so many great Hall of Famers at this low of a position, and I really have a problem with that. They rank so many great players like Dolph Schayes and Paul Arizin so low on the list, and yeah, I just can't get over that. Alright, number 76, Nate Tiny Archibald. Yeah, again, this is another player I put in the 60s, like I put him not in the 70s but in the 60s, so I think I'm a little bit okay, but then again, I think he's still a little bit underrated too. I mean, this is a guy who's one of the best small players of all time, averaged 7.4 assists a game while being just 6'1", the same size as Isaiah Thomas basically, and led the league in assists and scoring at the same time. So yeah, I don't know, he's part of the NBA's top 50 greatest, right? So I think he should be a little bit higher than that. So a little bit underrated there. Joe Dumars, 77. Again, I think Joe Dumars, little bit, he is a little bit overrated, I think, in my opinion, because of the fact that he played on the championship Pistons teams. I mean, I could actually think of much better great defensive point guards or shooting guards, right, of the 1980s, like Sidney Moncrief or Dennis Johnson, that in my opinion is better than Joe Dumars. I mean, would you take Joe Dumars, Dennis Johnson, or Sidney Moncrief? I bet Joe Dumars would be last in there, and here he's ranked the highest, so it doesn't really make any sense for me. I think Moncrief and Johnson are better than him. Oh wait, Sam Jones at 78. This is another one I have a problem with. Sam Jones, part of the 50 greatest players of all time celebration. The best, one of the second or third best player on the 1960s Celtics, which won 11 championships. Sam Jones won 10 championships. That's the second most all time by any player, right? 18 points per game, 5 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists per game, which are pretty good for that time. Yeah, he's one of the best shooting guards of the 60s, right next to Jerry West. And the fact that he's all the way down here at 78, I don't understand that. Like, I have him top 50 all time. I have him, like, and Bill Simmons in his ranking put him right beside George Gervin. That's how good Sam Jones is. He's a super clutch player. And without him, the Celtics wouldn't win like half the championships. So I have no idea why they rank Sam Jones so low, only 78. So I highly disagree with this one. I think he's ranked way too low. He's very underrated. Okay, number 79, Cherry Lucas. Again, I think he's a little bit ranked too low here. Just like Nate Thurmond and the rest, I think they should be ranked higher. I actually have him in the 60s, I think, just because he was such a great rebounder. 17 points per game, 15.6 rebounds per game. He was basically, compared to Nate Thurmond, he was actually a little bit better for sure. I think because he's a little bit better of a defensive player than Nate Thurmond is, and he made more. I think he made like more all NBA selections, all stars than Nate Thurmond did. So he's definitely higher than Thurmond, but still 79. No, still a little bit too low for him. He is 15.6 rebounds per game is one of the top 5, I think, rebounding numbers of all time. So that basically counts for something, like 20 rebounds per game before in a season. He definitely deserves to be a little bit higher than that. And then Grant Hill at number 80, which I am actually okay with this one, the actual ranking. And yeah, it's fine because Grant Hill was absolute beast when he was in the Pistons. In the first years with the Pistons, he was just a beast. So I'm okay with that. Basically, he was Tracy McGrady. I guess you could compare him to that in terms of lost promise, I guess. Yeah, because both of them got injured, and who knows how great they would have been if they didn't get injured. All right, so a bunch of players I disagree with here, the rankings, especially the older players. I feel are really underrated. 71 to 80, and then we have 61 to 70 here. Manu Ginobili at 61. Okay, I have a problem with this. Like, Manu Ginobili at 61 is crazy. Like, this guy, he never was the first option on his team, right? He was always a role player. And I realize he is a great shooting guard, right, for the San Antonio Spurs, and he's a great clutch player. But 61 all time, like the ESPN has this ranking him ahead of Sam Jones, like a 10-time NBA champion. They have him ahead of Nate Thurmond, ahead of Billy Cunningham, ahead of Jerry Lucas, ahead of Dolph Schayes. Like, they have Manu Ginobili ahead of all those players. It's just crazy. Like, he's not 61 all time. He's like more like in the 80s. That's where I would put him. So he's definitely overrated here. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely take a whole bunch of players over him, like Tiny Archibald, yeah, Dolph Schayes, Otis Gilmore, who we'll see later in this list. Yeah, I'll take them all over Manu Ginobili for sure. 62, Alex English. I actually think Adrian Dantley was a better player than Alex English. I think as a scorer, if you look at the stats, Adrian Dantley had better stats, had 2 scoring titles. Alex English only had 1, right? The only difference is Alex English kind of led his team, and Dantley, well, he did. Dantley actually led a team too. He led the Utah Jazz. Alex English just stayed with one team. That's really the only difference. But I would actually swap the places here. I swap Alex English with Adrian Dantley here, because I think Adrian Dantley deserves this spot more and is slightly better than Alex English. All right, and number 63, Tracy McGrady. Again, this is based on promise, right? Unfulfilled. Tracy McGrady was the best shooting guard for a period of time in the NBA when he was with the Orlando Magic. T-Mac, really good player when in his prime. Just he got injured, right? So he never got to fulfill his promise. Again, it's really hard to rank this guy, but I would actually put him closer to Pete Maravich, because closer to Pete Maravich and Grant Hill. I think that's where I would put them, along with the other players that had great promise, just they didn't have playoff success, and they were injury riddled. So I would put them closer to in the rankings to Pete Maravich and Grant Hill. Not here though. Okay, 64, Dennis Rodman. I'm totally okay with this. Dennis Rodman was a great player. You know, all-time great defender, all-time great rebounder. And I'm totally okay with him being at 64, even though people call him one-dimensional. He's just amazing at what he does. All right, 65, Alonzo Mourning. I'm also okay with this. Yeah, just a slightly worse defender than Rodman. And of course not as good as rebounding, but definitely a better scorer than Rodman was. So I'm okay with Alonzo Mourning being here. They're higher than Dikembe Mutombo, which I guess is okay as well, because they're better offensive players. But anyways, yeah, I'm okay with that. Chris Webber at 66. I think Chris Webber was really underrated. I mean, he isn't even in the Hall of Fame yet, along with Moncrief and Kevin Johnson. Well, Kevin Johnson, by the way, is not even on this list, I think, which is crazy. But yeah, Chris Webber is only at 66. I think that's okay. Like, yeah, that's fair. I think Chris Webber is actually pretty underrated for what he did. He took that Sacramento Kings almost to a finals, right? They almost beat the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, so that's pretty impressive. All right, 67, Dwight Howard. I actually think Dwight Howard is really underrated here because look at what he did for Orlando, right? I'm not talking about Dwight Howard right now. I'm talking about Dwight Howard over his entire career: 18 points per game, 13 rebounds per game, 2 blocks a game, right? And a 58% field goal percentage. That's crazy. Like 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and what, he led the league in rebounds 5 times, right? Led the league in blocks twice, 2 times, right? So this is a guy that actually had a pretty good career. People just hate on Dwight Howard because he's so-called soft, but the thing is, his career is actually pretty good, and he's definitely better than 67. I think I actually have him number 50 all time, but yeah, I mean, as a defensive player alone, Dwight Howard, I think you would take him over Alonzo Mourning, wouldn't you? I mean, who would actually take Alonzo Mourning over Dwight Howard? Like, this guy had 1 more Defensive Player of the Year, better rebounds, better points per game. He's better than Alonzo Mourning. I don't know why he's below him. So yeah, I think Dwight Howard should be in the 50s. He doesn't deserve to be this low, so I think he's actually underrated here. Okay, 68, Bob Lanier. Great player. Never got to go to the championship or finals, but totally great player. 20 points per game, 10 rebounds, 3 assists a game. And yeah, I'm okay with this ranking, 68. Bob Lanier, I don't have a problem with that. He was one of the great 70 centers. And number 69, Vince Carter. Don't know what to think about this one, but I think Vince Carter should be a little bit lower because he could have done more, but you know, never went to a finals, never really won a ring, and definitely not as good as Tracy McGrady in his prime. But I think he should be like in the 70s. I don't really put him 69. I mean, I'm not totally against this ranking, but I don't know how I feel about it. Vince Carter is he's just a good player, you know. He's never really a great player. He's just a good player. I would put him in the 70s, actually, not really here. Okay, number 70, Artis Gilmore. Here's the thing, I have a little bit of a problem with that, with Artis Gilmore at number 70, considering I have him in the top 50 all time. And this guy is so underrated. He was never in the NBA's top 50 greatest celebration, but I think that's because he played in the ABA. And if you look at it, if you combine his ABA stats, the fact that he was a ABA champion, ABA MVP, 5-time All-ABA selection, combine his ABA and NBA career, he's definitely a top 50 player. But if you subtract his ABA career, then I'm okay with this rank. I think the ESPN ranked this just based on NBA ranking, which also explains why Billy Cunningham is so low, and Rick Barry later on this list. But yeah, I think that ABA players really get shafted. I mean, Mel Daniels isn't on this list at all, totally great player. Roger Brown isn't on this list, another totally great player. The ABA players just get completely shafted and forgotten. And Artis Gilmore, you know, they didn't count his ABA stats. So I guess if you don't count his ABA, he's okay. I'm okay with him at number 70. But if you do count his ABA stats and awards, then he's definitely top 50. And yeah, all these guys below Manu Ginobili apparently. I mean, Dwight Howard is not. I mean, Manu Ginobili is not as good as Dwight Howard. I would take Dwight Howard over Manu Ginobili, wouldn't you? I mean, imagine if Tim Duncan and Dwight Howard were playing together, right? Like, and Tony Parker and all those rest of the guys. Like, I definitely think that yeah, Dwight Howard, Chris Webber, Alonzo Mourning, Dennis Rodman, all these guys are better than Manu Ginobili. But anyways, yep, that's my that's 61 to 70. 51 to 60. Okay, let's go. Reggie Miller at 51. Disagree with this. I think he's overrated. If you look at Reggie Miller's career, even though he led his team for a long time, never Never won a ring, never won a championship. 3-time All-NBA third team. He was never even second team or first team, which means he was never the top shooting guard in the NBA at any point in his career. 5-time All-Star, and that's it. Like, no rings, no MVPs, no Finals MVPs, and yet on this list he's ahead of a lot of Hall of Famers, a lot of legends, as you will see later on this list. So just like Manu Ginobili, I think he's a little bit overrated here. Reggie Miller, yeah, 51. I would put him maybe in the 70s or 80s. Actually, I wouldn't put him in the 50, in like just on the verge of the top 50. No. All right, Bob McAdoo at 52. I'm actually okay with that. I like Bob McAdoo. MVP, great winner, scorer. I'm okay with that ranking. Wes Unseld at 53. I'm a little bit disagreeing with. And also Bernard King and Dave Cowens at 55. So I'm gonna talk about Wes Unseld and Dave Cowens in the same breath because they are kind of similar players. Both of them are, in my opinion, top 15 centers of all time. Dave Cowens and Wes Unseld a little bit underrated, in my opinion, because both of them have rings and both of them have MVPs, and you can't really say that like for Reggie Miller. So why is Reggie Miller ranked ahead of Wes Unseld in front of Dave Cowens? It doesn't make any sense to me. I think they were far better players than Reggie Miller, and I have them both in my top 50. And yeah, Cowens, both of them were top centers in the 70s. Cowens was one of the greatest centers ever to play, averaging 18, 14, and 4 for his career, which is similar to Bill Walton, by the way. And yeah, same with Unseld either. Unseld was one of the best centers to pass in the game, was one of the best passing centers in the game. And yeah, I have similar feelings. So yeah, Wes Unseld, Dave Cowens should be ranked higher. They're a little bit underrated here. Bernard King at 54. I put him a little bit lower than that because even though he was great in his prime, he got injured, which puts him kind of in the same breath as Pete Maravich, because Pete Maravich got injured too. And I would put him like in a similar rank to Pete Maravich, I guess. I think Bernard King and Pete Maravich should be ranked similarly. Both were incredible players, incredible scorers, but they got injured in their prime. So I guess similar to Tracy McGrady as well. So you can rank them similar to Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill around that time. All right, talked about Dave Cowens already. Paul Gasol, 56. I think Paul Gasol's pretty underrated. So I think he's okay at this spot. He's a really underrated player. Yeah, but he's actually fairly ranked here. Robert Parrish, 57. I'm okay with that as well, just because his longevity was amazing. And as long as he's ahead of Dave Cowens, I mean, as long as he's below Dave Cowens, Dave Cowens is definitely better than Parrish at his peak, for sure. Tony Parker at 58, I'm also okay with. Tony Parker is really underrated as a point guard, but he's one of the best point guards of all time. And yeah, I'm okay with that. Carmelo Anthony at 59. I don't know about that. A little bit lower than 59, I would put him, but probably similar to 60s, early 60s, mid 60s. I would probably put Carmelo Anthony. Yeah, I would put him in a similar spot as Dominique Wilkins, actually, because to me, Dominique Wilkins and Carmelo Anthony are similar players. They have similar stats, they're similar scorers, and they both didn't win a ring. So I'll put them in a similar category there. Earl Monroe, I think, is a little bit overrated here. I think Earl Monroe is like, the guy was only All-NBA first team one time, and I don't think he deserves number 60, huh? Like ahead of players like Sam Jones? I don't think so. I think Sam Jones was definitely better than Earl Monroe. Not to say Earl Monroe isn't a great player, but there's players on this list that were better than him that were ranked lower. Alright, so yeah, Reggie Miller, no, not 51. Okay, let's go through the top 50 now. Let's take a break. Okay, all-time NBA ranked players 46 to 50. Let's go. Allen Iverson at 46. Surprisingly, I think Iverson is a little bit underrated on this list. I think he should be higher. I mean, can you really say that there is 45 better players than Allen Iverson? I don't think so. Like, Allen Iverson was even though he's not that efficient, I realized that and I realized that advanced metrics are not really kind to him because he was so inefficient. But as a player who has really a lot of heart and guts, and that has that really leadership mentality, you can't really quantify that in stats. The same with Isaiah Thomas, who you'll see later on. You can't quantify these things in stats, which is why like the advanced metrics may place him lower, but personally I think Iverson should be a little bit higher than that, and most people actually would agree with me when they think that Iverson should be a little bit higher than that. He is a top 30 player in my view. I put him actually in the top, what is it? Yeah, I put him in the top 30. So yeah, no idea why he's ranked this low. I think, yeah, it's just because advanced metrics place him this low, but I think he's a little bit better than that. Should be in the 30s or 20s at least. Alright, George Gervin, 47. I don't know, I put him a little bit higher than, I put George Gervin a little bit higher than this, but I guess I'm okay with it. It's not as bad as the snub with Iverson. Oh wait, Willis Reed at 48. Tell me, let's see, for me, this is a debate, Willis Reed or Patrick Ewing, which was the greatest Knick? For me, it was Willis Reed because he had all the hardware, he had 2 rings, 1 MVP, 2 finals MVPs, right? Patrick Ewing had nothing. But Patrick Ewing played in, let's say, so people defend Patrick Ewing because he played with a worse team than Willis Reed did. Willis Reed had a really Hall of Famer team that he played with. Patrick Ewing did not. So that's why I guess people discount Willis Reed's finals MVPs and MVPs because of that. But I don't know. I think Willis Reed was still a great player. And I'm not totally sure that Ewing was better than him. Ewing is actually ranked much higher than Willis Reed on this list, which I disagree with. I think he's ranked higher just because he had a longer career. I don't even have Patrick Ewing in my top 50. He's an honorable mention, but I don't have him in my top 50. But I have Willis Reed in my, top 40 player. So, yeah. I think Reed's a little bit underrated here. Should be a little bit higher than that. If not better than Patrick Ewing, he should be ranked a little bit closer to Patrick Ewing. Okay, Russell Westbrook at 49. I don't have Russell Westbrook in my top 50, but I guess I can understand where they're coming from. He is a really, really great player. And I think when his career finishes, he'll be top 50 all time. Ray Allen, top 50. Again, I don't have Ray Allen in my top 50. I think he's like a top 60s or 70s, maybe even 80s player, but as long as he should be ahead of Reggie Miller because he is a better player than Reggie Miller. He's basically Reggie Miller, except he has, his records are higher. He has rings. Basically, he is like Reggie Miller but better. So as long as he's ranked ahead of Reggie Miller, but yeah, I don't think he's top 50, in my opinion. All right, so that's 46 to 50. Let's go 41 to 45 now. All right, 41. I have Gary Payton. I have all the respect for Payton, but you'll see later why I don't think he should be ranked this high, a little bit this high. I think Walt Frazier is better than Gary Payton. And Walt Frazier is actually ranked lower than Gary Payton on this list. And I think Walt Frazier is definitely better than Gary Payton. So, yeah, take it as you will. No offense to Gary Payton, but I think they should be swapping spots. Alright, Bill Walton, 42. I'm okay with this because Walton was an incredible player in his prime, but because of the injuries, yeah, I definitely think Walton should be top 50 all time. But where he is in the top 50 depends on how much you think a prime matters in a career, but I'm okay with this, 42. James Worthy at 43. I think James Worthy is a little bit overrated actually, because he was never the first option on his team, and as great a small forward as he is, I don't think he's better than Dominique Wilkins. I mean, who would you take, Dominique Wilkins, who led his teams for like a decade, or James Worthy, who was the third option for an all-time great team? I mean, I guess if they swap spots, I guess James Worthy could have led a team as well, but it is what it is. Dominique did lead a team, so I would take Dominique Wilkins over James Worthy. So I think he's a little bit high in the spot. Dominique Wilkins at 44 again. I would swap places. I don't have James Worthy in my top 50 actually because of his lack of individual achievements, because he played with Magic and Kareem. But Dominique Wilkins also wasn't in my top 50 either. I would have Wilkins ahead of Worthy for sure though. So I think Wilkins and Worthy should be swapping spots here, and Carmelo Anthony should be ranked around amongst them as well, because I think that he is around the similar ranking. Paul Pierce, 45. I think Paul Pierce a little bit low here. I would probably put him higher than 45, a little bit higher. On this list, I think on my list, actually, I'm fine with Paul Pierce at 45. I just don't think that Wilkins and Worthy is better than Paul Pierce. But I think at 45 is fine. Yeah, I just don't think that Wilkins and Worthy is better. All right, that's it for 41 to 45. Let's go, keep going. 36 to 40. All right, Clyde Drexler at 36. I don't have a problem with this. It's fine. Clyde Drexler was a really good player. All right, 37, Rick Barry. I do have a problem with this because I do think Rick Barry is a top 25 player of all time. I think he's really underrated. Because he spent 4 years in the ABA, those stats and awards don't really count. And but even so, a guy who averaged 36 points a game in his second season in the league, I think he definitely deserves to be higher than 37. He led the Warriors on his back to a title, averaging just 36 and 6. That's incredible. And he should have won an MVP that year, but he didn't because it was voted on by players back then. And yeah, the second best player on that Warriors squad was a rookie, Jamal Wilkes, and that was it. Like, if you talk about a guy carrying a team, Rick Barry carried that team. And on a lot of lists, he's top 25, including Bill Simmons' list. So he's definitely top 25 for me. So he should be definitely ranked higher than 37. A little bit underrated there. Oh wait, Walt Frazier. This is what I'm talking about. 38. Yeah, I think Walt Frazier is better than Gary Payton for sure. So I'm glad that he's ranked here higher than Gary Payton. But again, yeah, I guess it's okay actually. 38. Yeah, I'm okay with Walt Frazier being at 38. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm fine with that. All right, 39, Bob Cousy. I think a little bit underrated. I think I compiled a metric adding up players' stats and awards and stuff and combined them together. And Bob Cousy surprisingly was a top 10 player on that list. Surprised me because he was a one-time MVP. He led the league in assists 8 times, which is incredible. I think that's like John Stockton, and that's what put him above to the top 10 on that list, I think. But either way, I would put him a little bit ahead of Walt Frazier. I don't think Walt Frazier is ahead of Bob Cousy. I think Bob Cousy has had more impact and deserves to be a better player. The problem with the ESPN rankings is that they don't consider greatness in their rankings. They only look at advanced metrics, advanced stats like per and win shares and stuff. But that really fails to capture the historical legacy of players. So yeah, I think Bob Cousy is a little bit underrated here. He should be higher than 39. And by the way, 6 rings. Yeah. Alright, so yeah, Bob Cousy, top 5 point guard for me. Rick Barry is a top 5 small forward for me. Number 40, Alvin Hayes. I'm okay with this. No problems. He's a great player. Deserves that spot. Alright. 31, 35. Let's go. Kevin McHale at 31. I don't know. I think Kevin McHale is a little bit overrated at this spot. I don't have McHale in my top 50. I have him as an honorable mention, but the reason why is because he has a lack of individual achievements. Look at his individual achievements here, right? Great defensive player, 6th man of the year, 7-time All-Star, 1-time first team. So he's only the best power forward in the league 1 time. And his career stats, nothing special, 18, 7, and 2 blocks a game. Great field goal percentage, and he's an incredible post player. I mean, he's one of the best at that. But 31 all time, I don't know. That's a little bit too high for me. I don't think he's I don't even think he's a top 50 player, but 31 all time, wow. Yeah, he's a little bit high right there. I just can't get over his lack of MVPs, no finals MVPs, all NBA only once. And he's higher on this list than Alvin Hayes. I would probably take Alvin Hayes over Kevin McHale. Yeah. Alright. Patrick Ewing at 32. Again, on my Willis Reed rant, I said Willis Reed should be closer to Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing is at 32, Willis Reed at 48. I think Willis Reed should be a little bit higher. Either that or Patrick Ewing should be a little bit lower, but they should be closer together because I don't think the gap between Reed and Ewing is that big. I think Ewing might be a little bit overrated or Willis Reed a little bit underrated, but one of those is true. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. George Mikan at 33. Again, I'm not sure how ESPN compiles these rankings because George Mikan is, let's see, Dolph Schayes was ranked in the 70s and Paul Arizin at number 90. Otis Gilmore also around that spot. How is George Mikan number 33? Like, if you want to talk about underrated guys, talk about Neil Johnston. Neil Johnston's not even on this list, and he was one of the top win shares. If you use advanced metrics, he was one of the top win shares in the 50s. How is he not on this list at all? And George Mikan is number 33. I mean, this was a guy that played in an era without a shot clock. Like, I don't know how you would rank this guy, but is he better than a lot of the guys I went through? I don't think so. In terms of legacy, yes, but in terms of legacy, why are you ranking Kuzi so low and George Mikan so high? I don't get it, right? Then Kuzi should be ranked higher. Paul Ayers and Dolph Schayes should be ranked higher, you know? Don't get why George Mikan is ranked so high, but those other guys aren't. You gotta stick to like one metric, ESPN. Oh wait, 34, Bob Pettit. Again, Bob Pettit is definitely better than George Mikan. And why is he ranked lower? He's really underrated on this list because, in my opinion, and actually my stats compile list, Bob Pettit was top 20 all time. If you look at his stats, 26, 16, and 3. Who else has those kind of stats? Two-time MVP, led his team to a ring, would have had finals MVP if they had it back then. Two-time scoring champion, rookie of the year, 9-time All-NBA. Like, how is he worse than George Mikan? How's George Mikan better than Bob Pettit? I don't understand. And at that, if you're talking about that, how is Kevin McHale better than Bob Pettit? Like, Bob Pettit was the best power forward of the 50s and 60s. There is no one better than him, right? And you're saying Kevin McHale and George Mikan were better than Bob Pettit? I don't think so. Yeah, I think he's underrated there. And by the way, he was the only one to beat Bill Russell in the finals too. Jason Kidd at 35. I'll come back to this later, but I don't understand why Jason Kidd is so much worse than Steve Nash on this list. You'll see there's a gap between Jason Kidd and Steve Nash on this list, and personally, Jason Kidd is a better player than Steve Nash is. I mean, I've made this argument before, but Jason Kidd has one ring, and he's a much better defender, and he's a much better all-around player than Steve Nash is. Higher total assists and steals, and the only thing Nash was better at was shooting, and even that's not really like a point guard's thing, you know? Point guard's job is to assist, and Jason Kidd has higher all-time assists as well. So, yeah, I don't understand that. Jason Kidd has all-around better stats, better defender, a ring. I don't understand why he's ranked lower than Steve Nash. He's a little bit underrated on this list. Okay, let's go to number 26 to 30 so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, 26, Isaiah Thomas. This is point of debate because advanced metrics don't like Isaiah Thomas because he wasn't a good shooter. But the problem is that Isaiah Thomas was really the leader of a team, right? And you look at his stats, 19-9, 2 steals a game. I know he has the same shooting percentage as Kobe Bryant, which means he's kind of inefficient, but that doesn't mean he should be really that low. Although 26 all time is fair, I think. I think 26 for Isaiah Thomas is fair. I just think that ESPN was thinking about putting him lower because of the advanced metrics don't like him, and I don't think that's fair because you can't quantify the intangibles, and Isaiah Thomas is one of those intangibles guys, you know, that gives a lot more on his court than his stats might suggest. Okay, Dwayne Wade, 27. I'm okay with that. I also put him the same spot, I think, on my list. John Havlicek, 28. Disagree with that. I think he's really underrated on this list. He has 8 rings, great all-around player, basically no flaws. Like, he has great defense. He's 8-time all-defensive team, great in the clutch. I had him at number 16 on my list, ahead of Elgin Baylor, and he's number 28 here. Like, he's so underrated here. Same with Rick Barry. Like, Rick Barry and John Havlicek really got shafted here in these rankings. I really think they should be higher than that. All right, and yeah, I think he's underrated. Havlicek. Chris Paul, 29. Yeah, I guess I can see why he's this high, because advanced metrics really like Chris Paul. He is one of the greatest point guards ever. Definitely higher than Steve Nash. I don't know if he's higher than Jason Kidd yet, but he's higher than Steve Nash for me. So yeah, but Jason Kidd is really underrated on this list anyway. Okay, now we get to Steve Nash, number 30, which is what I was talking about in my Jason Kidd rant. Why is Steve Nash 5 spots higher than Jason Kidd? I don't understand. Like, why? Like, 30 and Jason Kidd is 35? The only thing Nash is better at is shooting, and literally that's it. No championships, not a great defender, can really only assist and shoot, but he can't rebound like Jason Kidd can. So yeah, I don't understand that. Like, Jason Kidd should be ahead of Steve Nash for sure, I think. Alright, so I think Nash is a little bit overrated and Kidd underrated. Let's go to 21 to 25. 25, Scottie Pippen. Now this is one I really had a big problem with, because I had a lot of debate with people on Facebook about this. I had a major issue with this ranking about Scottie Pippen. Why is he so high? Why is he higher than John Havlicek? Why is he higher than Rick Barry? Would anyone really... Okay, you line up all the small forwards, right? At a table or in the playground, right? Would you really pick Scottie Pippen over John Havlicek or Rick Barry? Like, I wouldn't. Like, I had a major issue because Scottie Pippen... Here's the thing, right? Here's why he's so overrated. In my rankings, I had him in the 40s, so I definitely think he's a top 50 player of all time. But top 25 player? Like, 7-time All-Star, right? No MVP, no Finals MVP, never won a ring without Jordan. Basically, people's arguments for Scottie Pippen on this list, which I get on Facebook a lot. I got flamed on Facebook a lot because I thought Scottie Pippen was overrated. But this is what they said. Number 1, oh, he could lock down anybody from any era. He was just a legendary defender. Number 2, without Jordan, he took the Bulls to 55 wins during Jordan's first retirement. Number 3, without Pippen, Jordan would have no rings. So the same argument people make for Kobe, basically, that without this and this, then they have no rings. Alright, firstly, I want to address the first point. People exaggerate Pippen's defense. The thing is, if Pippen was so good at defending, how come he never produced a Defensive Player of the Year award when he was in the league, what, 16 seasons? 16, you're telling me this was a legendary defender that can lock down any position, and he never got a Defensive Player of the Year award, right? And yeah, that's pretty astounding why people would make that argument. Like, I realize he's a good defender. He's 10-time All-Defensive first team. I'm not saying he's a bad defender, but he's not as legendary a defender as people think he is, right? These are people online thinking that he can guard freaking Wilt Chamberlain. Like, I don't think Scottie Pippen can guard Wilt Chamberlain or Shaq, you know. So I looked at his stats too. Led the league in steals, whopping 1 time. Like, that's it, just 1 time. Even Magic led the league in steals twice. He had a whopping 2 seasons where he had 3 steals, like whoop-de-doo. 3 steals a game for 2 seasons. I mean, if you look at other players, defensive players, right, in NBA history, look at Dave DeBusschere, look at Bobby Jones, John Havlicek, Jerry West, Michael Jordan, Dennis Johnson, Sidney Moncrief, Michael Cooper, Gary Payton. All those guys were as great as Pippen. And they were all good as defensively as Pippen. And even Michael Cooper for the Lakers, right? Michael Cooper, he was small forward too. He was a wing defender, and he had a Defensive Player of the Year, right? How come Michael Cooper isn't even on this list and Scottie Pippen is freaking top 25? I don't understand that. Number 2, this Bulls had this guy named Horace Grant, who's really underrated, I think, who was actually the leader in win shares during the season that Jordan left, so 1994, and he averaged what, 15-11 a game? 15-11 a game. So people are saying that Pippen carried that team, but Horace Grant actually did a lot. And I know that Pippen led the Bulls in like whatever categories statistically and stuff, but he's not the only player to do that. Kevin Garnett did in 2004. Dave Cowens did it in 1978. People really assumed that Pippen could have led his own team if he was free of Jordan, but that just isn't the case. If you look at the Trailblazers with the Rockets, it just wasn't the case. Played with the greatest of all time. He played with Michael Jordan. If you play with the greatest of all time, the GOAT, then people think you're a top 25 player of all time. And then the GOAT retires and your scoring average goes to only 22 points a game, which is how much Pippen had in 1994. and also the highest scoring average he's ever had in his career, then and then you have the same team and lose to a team with only one superstar, Patrick Ewing. It's really not that impressive. I think, yeah, I just don't think he's the top 25 player of all time. Not saying he's not a great player, but I think if you put Havlicek or Barry with Jordan, they would get as many rings or more. So, yeah, overrated. All right, Elgin Baylor, number 24. I think he's really underrated at this spot. I mean, Elgin Baylor is a top 20 player for sure. He's not he's not number 24. He should be like number 15 or 16 all time. Actually, I had number 18, but anyways, should be a top 20 player. I mean, this is a guy who had 71 points a game before, averaged 38 points a game while serving the military part-time, averaged 27, 14, and 4 during his career. He shouldn't only rank number 24. Just one spot below Pippen is disgraceful to Baylor. He's one of the greatest of all time. Alright, Stephen Curry at 23. A lot of people had a debate about this. They hated on ESPN for ranking Steph Curry only 23, and I agree with that. I think he's really overrated this spot. I think as good as Curry is, he is the best shooter of all time, right? As people say, greatest shooter of all time. He changed the way that people play defense on him. But this guy has only been in the league like not that long, and his prime has only just started. He's only been an all-star for 2 seasons. That's it. And I don't think it's way too early to rank him ahead of players like Wade and Isaiah and Baylor. I mean, and yes, even Pippen. Like I wouldn't put Curry ahead of Pippen just yet. I mean, I would put him maybe 40s, but top 25? No, I don't think Steph Curry is top 25. He's overrated right now. Kevin Durant, number 22. Again, I think he's a little bit too high right now. We'll see what he does, but Kevin Durant should be a little bit low 20s, I think, or early 30s. I wouldn't put him like this high above Elgin freaking Baylor just yet. Alright, 21, Kevin Garnett. I'm okay with that. Yep, no problems with that. Alright, 16 to 20. Let's go. Karl Malone, number 16. Totally okay with it. That's where he belongs. 16. The second best power forward ever. 17, Dirk Nowitzki. I put him a little bit lower, like at number 26, I think, but I can see why he would be 17. I don't disagree with people who put him this high. I mean, I do think I underrated him a little bit. He should be a little bit higher than that. So Dirk Nowitzki, congratulations. Number 18, Charles Barkley. Would I take Charles Barkley over Dirk Nowitzki? Probably. In his prime, I would take Charles Barkley. But if you're looking at overall career, I think Dirk Nowitzki had the better career. But I'm okay with Charles Barkley being 18. He was absolutely the second best player in the world when he was in his prime. Better than Karl Malone and better than anyone else not named Michael Jordan. Number 19, John Stockton. I'm also okay with that. John Stockton was incredible. Higher than Isaiah Thomas? Yes, he is. I know people may disagree with me, but Stockton, look at him, all-time leader in assists, all-time leader in steals, and good shooter. So you just can't beat that. The perfect point guard. David Robinson at number 20. I'm okay with that as well. I think I'm putting 25, but I realize this guy was amazing. If Robinson had a longer prime, I think he would be ranked even higher. But number 20, I'm okay with that.